Okay, this is a response to ozzy78's terrific story about his first date, or that awful date, and him crapping in his pants. I don't have a date story to match that. Most of the dates I went on were with, first of all, with women that I already knew, but I couldn't think of a date that, where I have a story that quite, was particularly interesting to tell. But his story about crapping in his own pants, that sort of triggered a couple of stories, although one main story, involving a student of mine. Um, we were on a study trip to China. This is a couple of years ago. These are college students and a few graduate students. And I've had the opportunity to take students to China, to Southeast Asia, and to Japan as well. So we were in the city of Hangzhou, which is not too far from the city of Shanghai, and we were taking a boat cruise on, I believe it was Shihu, Lake Shihu, a famous lake in the beautiful city of Hangzhou. And about 5 minutes into the ride, the student approaches me and asks me, "Well, Stanley, do you happen to have any Imodium on you?" And I did, because I pretty much, when I do these trips, I always carry around kind of a small first aid kit for emergencies like that. And so I gave him a couple of Imodium tablets, and he went away. He came back about 5 minutes later, and he asked me, "Do you think that the boat would actually pull over and stop?" And I looked at him with this puzzled expression, and because he said that the Imodium wasn't effective, and he wasn't going to be able to hold it. He didn't think he was going to last the whole trip. And I said, "Well, no, I don't think the boat's going to pull over at all." And then I told him the boat trip's going to be about maybe 30 minutes or so longer, and asked him if he could manage that. And he said, "No, there's no way." So I went and got the Chinese guide who was accompanying us on this trip, and a really nice, energetic, young Chinese guide who went by the name Rocky. So Rocky and I went over to the boat crew, and the boat crew was extremely unsympathetic. They didn't care, and they didn't really pay much attention to us. Mind you, there was no restroom on this boat. It was a small boat, so there were no facilities there. And so, well, what were we going to do? So we were trying to think of what we could do, and I happened to go by a door in the cabin, part of the cabin, the back part of the boat. And I opened up the door, and I looked down into the hold, the boat hold, and it was dark, but there was enough light down there so that you can see. So I went down there to check it out, and I could see some wires and some mechanical equipment, but pretty much it was clear and nobody was down there. So, and I didn't see any light switch either. So I went back upstairs, I closed the door, and I thought, okay, we can use this room. Now what do we use to help this poor kid out? I had found a box, just a discarded cardboard box, and Rocky noticed that there were 3 huge bottles of water, basically the kind of bottled water that you use in a water cooler. And the bottles were wrapped in plastic, so Rocky and I proceeded to rip the plastic off of 2 of the bottles, and then we lined this cardboard box with the plastic. Went and got the student. I said, "Okay, here's your toilet. Do you have any toilet paper?" And he pulled out a huge roll of toilet paper. He was wandering around China with us with the toilet paper. He was an interesting student. I mean, he had dreadlocks. He was wearing a kind of 1960s hippies bandana, shorts. I mean, don't picture like a clean-cut, crew-cut, athletic sort of state school student. You have to picture a kind of a funky, dreadlock-wearing, Caucasian, middle-class art school student. All right. So anyway, so we give him the box in his toilet, and I take him to the door, and I show him where his restroom is downstairs, and then we give him the instructions. Rocky and I give him the instructions. We say, "Okay, you go down there, do your business, and then come back upstairs. And before the boat docks, make sure you go back downstairs and get the box and bring it up. However you do that, you need to do that, because we can't leave that box down there." So he goes down there for a couple of minutes, then he comes back up, and so how are you feeling? He says, I feel fine now. So okay, so that's how we solved that problem. And then, by the way, when the boat was about ready to dock, we reminded him, make sure you go down there and get that box. And so he went and retrieved the box. Although, I didn't see the box. I don't know how. Well, I don't remember seeing it anyway. So he did dispose of it properly, whatever properly might mean in that context. But at least it wasn't left on the boat. There's another story that was told to me by another student who was on that trip. And he had a similar situation on a small boat cruise somewhere, I don't remember where it was, where there was no restroom on the boat, and he was stuck with, this severe gastric situation. And what his friends did was they lined one of the side aisles between the cabin and the edge of the boat. What they did was they blocked off a section of that little aisle, and the gangway, I guess you would call it. And they turned their backs to him. A couple of students on one side, a couple of students on the other side. They turned their backs to him. Basically, he crapped over the side of the boat. Anyway, so I apologize. That's my response to Ozzy's great, terrific. I was sitting on the edge of my seat, sort of date story. I don't have a date story, but I have a couple of crappy stories instead. Okay, thanks.